I have synthesized months of trial and error and figuring things out. And what's nice is that within a morning, I could actually have something that is not like half baked or not half done or a bunch of unfinished projects, but I could actually have this workflow was completely and totally built out. And you'll see here on the screen this automation has basically a series of 4 emails that are getting dripped out over a number of days, really over the first week. This is an intro email sequence that we're sending out to leads as soon as they come into our sort of ecosystem. And you'll see here that these emails were written via HTML. And so if I were to click on here, this is all through an HTML designer. And so if I click edit design, you'll see here that it'll pop up and I can edit it right here in the Go Highlevel designer. But you'll see that we actually made them via Antigravity, and we'll let it load here. And so you'll see here on the left, we've got all of our HTML, and then over here on the right, we actually have what the email looks like. Now, a lot of people get scared and nervous when it comes to looking at code, and I was the same way. In fact, I don't think that I'm getting more familiar, more comfortable, but I would hardly say that I'm a coder or a developer. But what I do really enjoy about it is that it allows us to make the granular changes and it allows us to make the small adjustments that were otherwise really hard with AI, because you would try and change one thing and it would adjust everything else. And so I really like that HTML allows us to make small adjustments, especially to the copy, to the sizing, to the words, all that stuff. And so it's a way that we can sort of communicate with the with the AI and the machines. Okay, so let's talk about sort of how we got here and what we did. And the biggest place that we started was here in Antigravity, and I'll show you here sort of what we've done. Now, again, this may look a little scary, but I'm going to show you sort of what happened here and how we were able to break down all of these tools into something really, really manageable. But it actually was some place even before that. And so if I go in, I'm going to look around and see if I can grab my Notebook LM, because this was actually the first place that we went to. And so I'm a big fan of Notebook LM because you can upload a number of sources. And so we gave it, specifically it was using 3 trainings that I had done. And so about almost 3 to 4 hours worth of information that I had put out there on, training on AI and how to utilize it. And so what I actually had it did was I had it create you'll see here, I wanted an email series and I gave it some specifics. I said I wanted to have 4 days of emails over the first week, 3 days over the second week, and 2 days over the third week, and then 1 day thereafter. And I believe I asked it for a 90-day sequence. And so 90-day sequence. And so you'll see what it gave me is it gave me email number 1, it gave me email number 2, it gave me email number 3. It gave me, based on the training, it went through and it found all of the different topics that would sort of work together in a cohesive manner. And again, this is all just training that I already used, but it had put together in sort of story arc that would help someone to get familiar with me and eventually become a client and have us help them with their AI tools. So we've got this strategy, but this is only like part of it, right? Because that's great, but now we actually need to write the emails, but we want to write good emails. We want to actually write emails that are that like look and sound like us. And so what we did is we actually put together a couple of documents, and this is where I'm testing out, and I'm using Antigravity right now because it's a free tool and you can run it locally on your own computer. And once you get past sort of the the craziness of this here, or at least the unfamiliarity, if you don't know what, if you don't know what you're looking at, it can look a little overwhelming, and I totally understand that. So I want to try and break this down for you into some, bite size and consumable and accessible pieces. Now, Antigravity is great because you can contain a full project and you can have it sort of self-contain itself. And it can sort of work together alongside itself towards a common goal, right? There are other tools out there. Claude Cowork is another one that does this really well. OpenClaw is sort of another one that people are experimenting with to do sort of these same functions. But what we had here is we had a couple of folders that we created that had everything that it needed in order to be able to do what it is that we want. And so I guess even before we get in there, there's a couple of things that we put together. And so the first thing that we put together is we had our, what we call our visual brand markdown file. And actually, let's go in and let's open the copywriter first. So we're going to open the copywriter, and in this folder, you'll see here, this is, let's make this a little bit bigger. And so you'll see here, what we did is over on the left, we gave it a couple of examples. So the first one was we gave it an email example of what it is that we wanted. We gave it the strategy that I had showed you a little bit before. So we actually gave it all of the different emails. I went through and I looked at the call to actions and the concepts, and I reviewed all this to sort of make sure that it was what I wanted it to do. And then we also put down an email writing guide. And this was specifically where we wanted it to know what I sounded like, the words that I used, how I write emails, how I craft emails. I want it to look and sound and feel like me, or at least to have a start, so that way I can, most of it looks and sounds and feels like me. And so we're giving it all of that information in advance in what we call an MD file, a markdown file. It's a really simple, it's just a different way to save a file that keeps all of this information in here. So it knows the headings, it knows the specific things, and it basically is written and formatted so that the AI knows what to look at. And then the last thing that we put in here is we have our source materials, right? We put in all of our, you'll see here on the right, this is the transcript. This is the transcript, all of the raw information from the trainings that, several hours of information that it can pull from, so that it has all of the information, right? And that's kind of it. So the first thing I said was put together an execution plan to write the first week of emails in the strategy, right? We gave it that text file that had all of the emails in there. We said we just wanted to work on the first emails. We said use these references, use the markdown files, email example, and email writing guide to inform you. We said these are the guidelines you need to strictly use. And then, if I'm not mistaken, let's see if we can see the bottom part of it. And then it says, then you'll put the emails in a separate folder where we're going to have them, right? And so those are all of the things that we saw here. Those are all of those right here, right? So now we've got this. So then it said it puts together a plan. And what's nice is that you can adjust this plan, you can augment this plan. It actually has it right here. So it has the implementation plan, which you can review and adjust. I also made some adjustments where I said, let's make sure, I forgot on the first one, let's make sure we use the source material so that they're actually using what it is that I said. And again, I'm telling it that they should be studied and used explicitly. You really want to make sure that you give the AI everything it needs to know, and so it doesn't have to assume anything. And so just saying that you want to study it and use it explicitly, right? I like those words, it's explicitly, perfectly, because of course, as a human, we're not going to be able to make something perfect, but an AI, if you tell it to do that, it's going to spend more time being accurate, right? It's going to focus on accuracy because you've told it that, okay? I think a couple of other things that I wanted to adjust, and specifically in the emails. And then what I really love about Antigravity here is I moved them out, but it allows you to edit the emails right here in this interface, and it allows you to, it gives you suggestions and all these sorts of things. It makes it really easy to keep everything in the same sort of ecosystem. So we updated it, we adjusted all that stuff. I added some more stuff, and then what's also really, really cool is that when you have something like this, now I said, okay, I want you to take note of everything, all of the adjustments that we just gave you, all of the nuances that I just gave you, and I want you to add that to your guide. I want you to add that to your instructions for next time. So that way, next time I don't have to tell you the same thing over and over again. You're already going to know that I want it to be like this, or I want this specific detail, or I want to remove this sort of thing, all of those things. So that way you're continuing to save time, but your agent is getting better and better and better over that time as well, which is going to like continue to compound on yourself. Okay, so it's gotten all this information, and then you'll see that it wrote it. And we actually moved these over here, but you can see that it actually writes all of the, writes all of the emails. And so this is all housed right on here on my computer. So I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see, these, but I have them in here. They were in this folder. All I did was just move them into the email designer folder. And so we've got our email copywriter, and we've got our email designer. Because now that we've got them written, I showed you at the beginning, I need to get them into like an HTML file, right? Or I need to get them into this format so I can send them in an email. I want them to look good. I want to follow the specific branding. And so now we're going to go into here to our email designer, and this is going to be, you'll see here in a different, this is what they call a different folder. So I'm going to close this one. So now I've got this one. Let's break that off here. Okay, so I've got my email designer. Now you'll see that for our email designer, similarly, we did a couple of things in order to give it some instructions here. You'll see that I gave it a markdown of our visual brand. So now it knows colors, it knows what not to do. It has some very specific instructions for our visual brand. I also gave it another example of how we formatted our HTML, so it has a specific example. And then I actually went through and gave it some instructions from an AI. I asked an AI, hey, here's the HTML, here's the email that we want to send. I need you to create instructions so that another AI agent like yourself can follow these perfectly, and it'll get an exact replica. And so that's sort of the prompt that I put into that. And it gave me this document here, which now tells the agent how to use it, right? And so if I look over here and we look in our email designer, let's take a look at that conversation. So you see at the top, I did something similar. I said create an implementation plan, because once again, I want to get synced on. I'm the strategist. I'm the overseer. This is going to take a lot of. It's just not going to be. The best way to look at it is you are the conductor, right, of the orchestra, and you want to be able to make sure that they're doing the things that you actually want them to do, and so that's why the implementation plan is really important. Then I also tell it to reference the things that we gave it, the approved email, or it's going to look in this folder, right? It has the four emails that we wrote. Then it's going to look at and study the examples that we gave it, the markdown files, and then we're going to tell it to put it in a new folder here. And so there's a couple of things that it needed to ask specifically about hero images and stuff like that. I double checked to make sure that it also used the markdown file that we gave it for the branding. There was a couple of specific things that I needed to adjust with images and titles and that sort of stuff. So I was just going back and forth and sort of massaging it. And then again, I wanted to tell it to edit its own instructions so that next time around it knows those adjustments and those changes that we asked for. And then I said create the 4 HTML files, and then it went ahead and did that. And so you'll see here was the conversation. On the right was the conversation that we had. On the left, now I've got my HTML emails, and I've got those right here. And if I wanted to edit those, I could right here in it. But I could also just copy and paste those into my email designer as well. And so this sort of completes the anti-gravity part of it, because now we have our emails. We've got our emails. They're formatted in HTML. They've got all of the stuff that we wrote on them. And so now we're able to just copy and paste those into our email service provider. Now we're using Go Highlevel, and I really like it because I essentially asked the AI builder to to just do it. I said, I want a 4-part email series that if the person does not open the email, that they are resent that email before they get the next one. That was sort of exactly kind of how I worded it, and I worded it a little bit differently. I wish that you could see the prompt here in AI, because the first time that I prompted it, it didn't work. And so I actually had to re-prompt it again, being a little more specific and a little more clear on what I wanted, and then it set it up almost perfectly. Now, again, I had to go in and adjust it and change some things, but at least now this was exactly what happens, where they send an email and then it waits. We put a little timer on it, and it waits about 18 hours, 17 hours, something like that, to see if they've opened it. If they've opened it, great. They send them a second email, right? Or actually, yeah, we're gonna wait a little bit longer here. But they send them a second email. If they didn't open it, then we resend the first email. We wait again a little bit, and then we go to the next one, right? Then again, we wait to see if they opened it. If they opened it, then we just send them another one. If they didn't open it, then we send them this one, and then we wait a little bit. And so this allows them to be able to get the information, right? It's only 4 emails, but it's a potential of sending 8 different actual campaigns, depending on if they didn't open any of them. And so it's another way to say at the top of their inbox, and not necessarily have to create 8 different, emails. And if they continue to open them, then we'll just continue to send them stuff. And so again, I love that. If this were to take me, this would have taken me maybe a whole week to put together, right? It would have taken a morning to put together and go through my trainings and go through all of the transcripts to figure out, okay, what's the email series, what's the strategy behind the different emails that we're sending. It would have taken me another morning to write them all. It would have taken me another morning to format them. It would have taken me another morning to actually get them in. And so sort of a week's worth of work was done in all in a morning, and heavily aided and enabled by AI. Now you'll see that there were a lot of steps where I was in there massaging and tweaking and adjusting, which is going to be an important part of it, but it was definitely enabled and accelerated by AI as well. And so if you want our paper on how businesses can use AI, comment AI in the comments, and we'll send it to you. Otherwise, you can go to aisuccess.help for more information and get some one-on-one time with us or our team. And we can't wait to see what you're building. We'll see you on the next one.